How important is having a family for you?
It's very important. I think what else is, for me, it's like that's the reason I'm here.
After 30 years, Richard Gere has finally revealed why he divorced Cindy Crawford. For decades, fans and tabloids speculated about the real reason behind their high-profile split, but Gere stayed silent, until now. Join us as we uncover what Richard Gere has finally shared about the end of his marriage to Cindy Crawford, the Hollywood Enigma. Richard Gere's story begins far from the glitz of Hollywood. Born on August 31, 1949, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and raised in the quiet town of Syracuse, New York, Gere came from a working-class family. His father, Homer, was an insurance salesman, and his mother, Doris, was a homemaker. He was the second of 5 children. From a young age, Richard showed an interest in the arts. His early acting journey began in theater. He performed in regional productions and eventually landed a spot in the London stage version of Grease. By the mid-1970s, he began appearing in films. His breakout came in 1980 with the movie American Gigolo. In it, Gere played a high-end male escort named Julian Kay. The role launched him into stardom. His look, stylish, confident, and mysterious, captured the public's imagination. He became a symbol of masculine beauty, and people couldn't stop talking about him. Gere followed this success with An Officer and a Gentleman in 1982, playing a troubled naval officer trainee. The movie was a major hit. His performance showed more emotional depth and helped him gain respect as a serious actor, not just a handsome face. Then came Pretty Woman in 1990, where he starred alongside Julia Roberts. The romantic comedy became one of the most beloved films of the decade. By the 1990s, Richard Gere was one of Hollywood's biggest stars. He was considered both a heartthrob and a talented actor. But despite his fame, Gere was never fully comfortable in the Hollywood scene. He rarely attended parties or chased publicity. He had a quiet and reserved nature that made him different from many other celebrities of his time. One of the things that truly separated Gere from other actors was his spiritual side. In the 1980s, he began practicing Tibetan Buddhism. He developed a close relationship with the Dalai Lama and became a strong supporter of Tibetan rights. Gere didn't just practice privately. He used his platform to speak out against the Chinese government and advocate for freedom in Tibet. This wasn't common for major stars, especially at a time when speaking on political issues could hurt one's career. But Gere never seemed to care about fitting into the Hollywood mold. He avoided flashy interviews and rarely shared details about his private life. Even so, the media remained deeply interested in him, especially his love life. Long before he met Cindy Crawford, Gere had a reputation as a ladies' man. Over the years, he was linked to several high-profile women. He dated actress Penelope Milford in the 1970s and model and author Carol Mallory, and was rumored to have had a romance with Priscilla Presley. There were also whispers of a relationship with Kim Basinger, although neither of them confirmed it. These relationships only added to his image as a mysterious and desirable figure. Unfortunately, Gere also found himself the subject of bizarre and damaging rumors. The most infamous was the false and cruel gerbil urban legend, a ridiculous and baseless story that spread widely in the 1980s and became a strange part of pop culture. Gere never publicly commented on the rumor, choosing to stay silent rather than give it attention. But the story stuck around for years, often overshadowing serious discussions about his career or activism. This was one of the downsides of fame. His private life, whether true or not, became public property. Part of the problem was that Gere's film roles often mirrored his public image. In movies, he played smooth, charming, mysterious men. Audiences began to think of him that way in real life too. The lines between Richard Gere, the actor, and Richard Gere, the man, became blurred. As much as he tried to maintain privacy and distance, the media never stopped watching him. The supermodel of the era. Cindy Crawford wasn't just a model. She was the model. Her journey from a small-town girl in Illinois to one of the most recognizable faces in the world is a story of hard work, intelligence, and perfect timing. Cindy was born on February 20th, 1966, in DeKalb, Illinois. Her father worked as an electrician, and her mother was a bank teller. She came from a working-class background, and life in DeKalb was quiet and simple. But even at a young age, people noticed her looks. At 16, a local photographer took a picture of her while she was working a summer job. That photo led to her first modeling job and opened the door to a completely different world. Despite her early interest in modeling, Cindy was focused on school. She was an excellent student, smart, disciplined, and curious. She graduated from high school as valedictorian, which means she had the highest grades in her class. She even earned a scholarship to study chemical engineering at Northwestern University, a top school in the U.S. However, after just one semester, she decided to leave college to pursue modeling full-time. It was a bold move, but it turned out to be the right one. Cindy's modeling career took off in the 1980s. Her strong features, especially her trademark mole above her lip, made her stand out in an industry that often preferred a more polished, perfect look. Designers, photographers, and magazines loved her. She quickly became a favorite of big fashion houses like Versace, Chanel, and Calvin Klein. Her face appeared on the covers of magazines all over the world, including Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar, and Cosmopolitan. She wasn't just a model, she was the face of the fashion industry. One of her most famous moments came in 1992 when she starred in a Pepsi commercial that aired during the Super Bowl. In the ad, she steps out of a red sports car and buys a Pepsi from a vending machine. It was simple, but it became iconic. People across the country remembered that commercial. It showed how much of a pop culture figure she had become, not just someone in fashion, but someone everyone recognized. Cindy also understood the power of expanding her brand. She wasn't satisfied with just modeling for other people. She became a businesswoman. She launched fitness videos, skincare lines, and even home goods. She was one of the first models to truly branch out into other industries and do it successfully. Her intelligence played a big role in that. While many people saw models as just pretty faces, Cindy showed that being a model didn't mean being shallow or simple. She was smart and strategic and knew how to build a long-lasting career. In 1989, she also became the host of House of Style, a fashion and lifestyle show on MTV. The show gave viewers a behind-the-scenes look at the fashion world and helped make modeling more relatable to everyday people. Cindy's presence on the show helped her connect with a younger audience, and it made her even more of a household name. In the public eye, Cindy was seen as all-American, a natural beauty, charming and having a strong work ethic. She was often called America's sweetheart, especially compared to many of the more mysterious or rebellious celebrities of the time. She rarely got involved in scandals and usually stayed out of gossip columns. People admired not just her beauty, but also the way she carried herself. She seemed calm, grounded, and professional. Relationship and marriage. Richard Gere and Cindy Crawford met in the late 1980s, during a time when both were at major turning points in their careers. Gere was already a well-established movie star, known for his roles in American Gigolo, An Officer and a Gentleman, and Pretty Woman. Cindy, on the other hand, was quickly rising to the top of the modeling world. Their paths crossed in 1988 or 1989 at a star-studded event, and it didn't take long for sparks to fly. Their first meeting happened at a Hollywood party, full of celebrities, cameras, and industry insiders. Richard Gere, with his quiet, mysterious charm, stood out in the crowd. Cindy, only in her early 20s at the time, had already made a name for herself in fashion, but was still relatively new to the world of A-list fame. When they met, there was an instant attraction. People who saw them together said the chemistry was obvious. Both were incredibly attractive, successful, and admired, but they came from very different worlds. That difference only made things more exciting for them. Richard was known for his deep, serious nature. He kept a low profile, often avoiding the spotlight when he wasn't working. Cindy, in contrast, was just getting used to fame and was regularly seen at fashion events, magazine shoots, and red carpet appearances. Their personalities seemed to balance each other out. Cindy brought brightness and energy, while Richard added depth and mystery. One of the first things the public noticed about their relationship was the age difference. Richard Gere was about 39 years old when they met, while Cindy Crawford was only around 22. That's a 15-year age gap, and it became a hot topic in the media. People wondered how someone so young and early in her career could connect with someone older and already experienced in both fame and relationships. The press covered their relationship heavily. Tabloids and magazines ran stories about whether the age difference would become a problem. Some speculated that Gere liked having control in the relationship and that Cindy might have been too young to fully understand what she was getting into. Others believed Cindy brought a fresh energy into Richard's life and helped him soften his often serious image. At the time, Cindy was still discovering who she was. Both personally and professionally, Gere was already more settled in his identity, though he also had his own inner struggles. Despite the outside talk, the two seemed to enjoy each other's company and ignored the criticism. Their appearances together at public events created a lot of buzz. Wherever they went, cameras followed. They were seen as Hollywood's most glamorous new couple, beautiful, successful, and unexpected. While the age gap created public interest and some doubt, it didn't stop the relationship from moving forward quickly. Within a few years of meeting, Cindy and Richard would be making a major decision about their future together. By the early 1990s, Richard Gere and Cindy Crawford were one of the most talked-about couples in the world. Their relationship moved fast, and in December 1991, they surprised everyone by getting married in a very private ceremony in Las Vegas. The wedding wasn't planned far in advance. It was a last-minute decision made while they were in Vegas for a friend's wedding. Instead of a grand Hollywood celebration, they chose something quick and simple. Their wedding took place at the Little Church of the West, a famous Las Vegas wedding chapel. It was small and spontaneous. They didn't even have formal wedding rings ready. Instead, they purchased matching platinum bands at the last minute and had them engraved with a personal message. It was a low-key ceremony attended by only a few people, but the world found out quickly. For fans and the media, it felt like a real-life fairy tale, two incredibly attractive and famous people suddenly becoming husband and wife. After the wedding, Richard and Cindy became one of Hollywood's biggest power couples. Wherever they went, cameras followed. They were seen together at movie premieres, fashion events, and political fundraisers. They were on the covers of magazines and in the center of every tabloid story. In many ways, they represented the perfect image of glamour and success. They attended major events together, including the Academy Awards. One of their most talked-about red carpet moments came at the 1991 Oscars, where Cindy wore a striking red Versace dress while standing proudly next to Gere. That appearance helped define them as Hollywood royalty. They were also involved in causes that mattered to them. Gere continued to support Tibet and human rights, while Cindy worked on charitable and health-related causes. Their shared interest in activism made them even more appealing to fans. But behind the public image, there were growing differences between them. Richard Gere had always been a private person. Even though he was a huge movie star, he didn't enjoy the attention that came with it. He often avoided interviews, stayed away from Hollywood parties, and focused more on his personal spiritual journey than on fame. His involvement with Tibetan Buddhism was very important to him. He regularly met with the Dalai Lama and used his fame to raise awareness about political issues in Tibet. He was serious, thoughtful, and often kept to himself. Cindy, on the other hand, was at the peak of her modeling career. The early 90s were her busiest and most visible years. She was on runways in Paris, Milan, and New York. She was shooting commercials, doing interviews, and building her personal brand. Her life was high energy and full of public appearances. She was outgoing and didn't mind being in the spotlight. After all, it was a key part of her job. She enjoyed the fashion scene, the business opportunities, and the attention that came with being one of the top supermodels in the world. These differences in lifestyle started to create distance between them. Cindy later explained in interviews that, at the time of their marriage, she was still trying to figure out who she was. Being in a relationship with someone 15 years older and already well-established in his own ways made it harder for her to fully grow into herself. She felt that she had adapted to Richard's world rather than building a shared world together. Meanwhile, Gere reportedly struggled with the constant media attention that came from being with one of the most photographed women on the planet. He had always disliked the Hollywood circus, and being with Cindy meant more cameras, more gossip, and more intrusion into his private life. While Cindy thrived in that world, it made Richard uncomfortable. From the outside, they looked like the perfect match, but in private, their different goals and ways of living began to pull them in separate directions. Next, we'll take a closer look at the cracks that began to show behind the scenes, and how pressure, rumors, and personal growth pushed the couple toward their breaking point. Trouble in paradise. Even though Richard Gere and Cindy Crawford looked like the perfect couple to the outside world, things behind closed doors were far from simple. Their relationship had started with passion and excitement, but over time, the differences between them became harder to ignore. Slowly, the glamorous image began to fade, and cracks started to show. One of the biggest challenges they faced was the difference in life stages. When they got married in 1991, Cindy was just 25 years old. She was still figuring out who she was, not only as a person but also as a public figure. Her modeling career was booming, and she was just beginning to explore opportunities in television, business, and branding. She had a full calendar, a growing fan base, and a hunger to try new things. Richard, on the other hand, was in his early 40s. He had already lived through decades of fame and had started to pull back from the spotlight. He was focused more on his inner world, spirituality, personal growth, and quiet reflection. He had embraced Tibetan Buddhism and was more interested in humanitarian work than red carpet events. While Cindy was heading full speed into a fast-paced career, Richard was slowing down and looking inward. This difference in energy and ambition created distance between them. They weren't in sync with what they wanted from life at that point. One area where this showed up was the question of having children. There were conflicting reports over whether this was a major issue in their marriage. Some sources claimed that Cindy wanted children and Richard didn't, while others suggested that it wasn't really about kids. It was about timing and priorities. Cindy herself later said in interviews that she wasn't ready to start a family during that time, but still, people close to the couple say that the question hung over their relationship and may have added pressure. At the same time, the media was constantly watching them. As one of the most famous couples in the world, they were followed by paparazzi everywhere they went. Rumors of infidelity and jealousy swirled around them. Some tabloids speculated that Cindy was getting too close to other men in the fashion industry. Others accused Richard of being unfaithful or emotionally distant. Whether or not any of it was true, the constant gossip made it harder for them to focus on each other. It added stress to a marriage that was already facing challenges. One rumor that followed Richard for years was about his sexuality. From early in his career, there were persistent claims in tabloids and gossip circles that he might be gay. These rumors were never confirmed and were widely seen as baseless, but they didn't go away. During his marriage to Cindy, these stories grew louder. Some people suggested that the relationship was more for show than for love. Others claimed Cindy felt pressure from the attention and the questions about their private life. In later interviews, Cindy admitted that the rumors were tough to deal with. She never said they were the reason for their split, but it's clear that the constant public speculation added to the strain. Another issue was identity. Cindy has spoken openly in later years about how lost she felt during the marriage. She said she didn't fully know who she was back then. She had gone from being a young model to the wife of one of Hollywood's biggest stars, and in the process, she often felt like she was living in Richard's world rather than building her own. She felt she had tried too hard to fit into his life instead of being true to herself. Richard, according to some reports, was distant and emotionally unavailable. He was thoughtful and quiet, but that sometimes meant he didn't open up or offer the emotional support that Cindy needed. While he was on a spiritual path, she was navigating fame, business, and self-discovery. They weren't able to meet in the middle. By the mid-1990s, it was clear that their marriage was struggling. They had grown apart, and the love that once connected them wasn't enough to keep them together. Why they split. By 1995, Richard Gere and Cindy Crawford's marriage had reached its breaking point. After nearly 4 years together as husband and wife and several more as a high-profile couple, they officially announced their separation. The news quickly became one of the biggest celebrity stories of the year. What had once seemed like a glamorous love story was now ending in front of the entire world. The announcement of the split came in May 1994, but the divorce was finalized in 1995. As soon as they confirmed the news, the media went into a frenzy. Headlines ran non-stop. Paparazzi followed both Richard and Cindy wherever they went. Everyone wanted to know why the perfect couple couldn't make it work. Reporters speculated on everything: age difference, infidelity, lifestyle clashes, and even the old rumors about Richard. The couple kept most of the details private, but that didn't stop the gossip from growing. Before calling it quits, Richard and Cindy had made efforts to save their marriage. Sources at the time said they went through periods of separation, trying to give each other space and figure out if they could reconnect. There were attempts to rekindle the relationship, and at times it looked like they might work things out. But ultimately, the problems ran too deep. The differences in how they lived, what they wanted, and where they were in life couldn't be ignored any longer. In the years that followed, Cindy Crawford became more open about why the marriage didn't last. One of her most revealing comments came in a 2013 interview with Oprah Winfrey. Looking back, Cindy said something that really stood out. "We didn't spend enough time as friends." She explained that while there was love and attraction, they didn't build a strong foundation of friendship first. They jumped into a serious relationship and marriage very quickly, without really getting to know each other in everyday life. Cindy also admitted that during the marriage, she was still trying to figure out who she was. She felt like she was trying to fit into Richard's world, his way of thinking, his lifestyle, and his emotional space. And she believed Richard was doing the same thing with her. They were both adjusting and shifting, but not necessarily connecting in a genuine or lasting way. In the end, she realized they simply weren't compatible, no matter how good they looked together from the outside. Richard Gere, as always, took a much quieter approach. He rarely spoke about the divorce publicly. True to his nature, he stayed private and philosophical. He didn't give interviews about the breakup and never addressed the rumors or stories surrounding their relationship. For him, silence seemed to be his way of moving on, retreating from the media, focusing on his personal growth, and staying out of the spotlight as much as possible when it came to his personal life. While Cindy opened up over time and gave people a look into her emotions and lessons learned, Richard continued to guard his privacy. Some saw this as distant, while others viewed it as a form of peace, his way of letting go without reliving the past in public. Their divorce was not bitter or dramatic in a legal sense. There were no public fights, no custody battles, and no drawn-out legal war. It was a quiet end to a very public marriage. For both of them, it seemed the relationship had simply run its course. They moved on to new chapters, with Cindy remarrying and building a family, and Richard continuing on his spiritual path and career in film. But the story of their marriage remains one of the most memorable celebrity relationships of the 1990s, short-lived, beautiful, and full of lessons about love, timing, and personal growth. Life after each other. After their high-profile split in 1995, both Cindy Crawford and Richard Gere took very different paths, but each found their own kind of peace and success. Cindy didn't stay single for long. Just a few years later, in 1998, she married nightlife entrepreneur and former model Randa Gerber. Their relationship was built on a strong friendship first, which Cindy has said was something she learned the importance of after her marriage to Gere. With Randa, things felt more grounded. The couple went on to have 2 children, Presley and Kaya Gerber. Kaya would later follow in her mom's footsteps and become a successful model herself. Beyond her personal life, Cindy built a powerful business empire. She didn't just remain a pretty face in the fashion world, she became a smart and strategic entrepreneur. One of her biggest successes was Meaningful Beauty, a skincare line launched with French dermatologist Dr. Jean-Louis Sebag. It became hugely popular and added a whole new dimension to her career. She also got involved in home design, launching a line of furniture and home goods that reflected her personal style. Over the years, Cindy has managed to stay relevant without chasing fame. She embraced aging gracefully, spoke openly about the pressure women face in the beauty industry, and became a role model for balancing motherhood, marriage, and business. In many ways, her time after Gere allowed her to step out of the shadow of being a celebrity wife and into her identity as a global brand and strong individual. Richard Gere's life also moved forward, though in a quieter way. In 2002, he married actress and former Bond girl Carrie Lowell. They had 1 son together, Homer, born in 2000. This marriage lasted longer than his first, over a decade, but it too came to an end. Their divorce, finalized in 2016, was more complicated than his split with Cindy and included a lengthy legal process. After that chapter closed, Richard eventually found love again with Spanish publicist and activist Alejandra Silva, who is more than 30 years younger than him. They married in 2018 and have 2 young children together. Unlike his first marriage to Cindy, Richard kept this relationship mostly out of the public eye. He and Alejandra shared a love for humanitarian work and spirituality, and by all accounts, Richard seemed more content and settled. Interestingly, both Richard and Cindy used their first marriage as a stepping stone. Each learned from it and grew in their own ways. For Cindy, the divorce helped her realize what she needed in a partner and taught her how to balance love with independence. It also gave her the motivation to become more than just Gere's wife. She redefined herself as a businesswoman, wife, mother, and icon. For Richard, the split reinforced his private nature. He became even more elusive in the media, choosing to live life on his own terms. He rarely gave interviews and almost never discussed his personal relationships, yet he remained a compelling figure, a Hollywood star who aged gracefully and kept his mystery alive. While they both moved on with their lives, their time together left a lasting mark on how the world saw them. It was a short marriage, but it helped shape their public images for years to come. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood history.